And I apologize in advance if I screw up some names, but it looks like we are live now. So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Griffo. I'm going to be your host. I am an agent at ICM Partners, which is one of the largest talent agencies in the country. Specifically, I represent theatrical designers, those artists who design sets, costumes, lighting, sound, and even projections for Broadway, off-Broadway, West End, international, all regional operas, ballets, the whole gamut. So this is Camp Broadway's At This Stage series, bringing Broadway to the masses, the students, while you're all homeschooled. And today, and working online. And today, we have as our special guest, my client, Broadway costume designer Emilio Sosa, extraordinarily talented, has been represented on Broadway with Motown the Musical, On Your Feet, the Gloria and Emilio Estefan musical, Tony nominated for Porgy and Bess. You may also know him from fashion Project Runway and Project Runway All-Stars. Hello, Emilio.
Hi, Michael. How are you? Good to see you.
Doing very well during these crazy times.
They're crazy, but in these times, we need art. Art is what makes us happy and it's what's going to get us through.
It is most certainly going to get us through. So why don't we start, and why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and how you started from a kid growing up in New York to a Tony-nominated Broadway designer.
Wow. Ooh, that's a long one, but hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name is Emilio Sosa. I am a costume designer, and I'm a New Yorker, and my journey is, it's not a straight line, and I never really dreamt of becoming a theater designer. My goal and my love was fashion design, and that's how I started. But to take you back to the beginning, I was really a shy, introverted kid that really didn't mix well with other kids. So I had the blessing of finding an amazing teacher. So I want to give a shout out to all the teachers out there. And she used art as a vehicle to get me to open up as a person. And once she gave me that colored pencil and blank sheet of paper, she really just opened up an entire world for me. I was able to express myself, whether I was happy, sad. Anything for me starts with drawing. Even now, if I'm bored, I draw. If I'm happy, I draw. If I'm on the subway, I draw. It's just my way of expressing myself. So I started as an artist. I just wanted to draw. And teachers around me noticed that. So they were very, very encouraging. So much so that by the time I got to high school age, I was able to attend the High School of Art and Design here in New York City. It's on 57th Street and 2nd Avenue. And that's
it's still there?
Oh, totally. It's one of the best schools in the city. It specializes in design, everything from fashion to industrial to architecture. And it was there. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, that was your first love, right? Fashion?
Fashion has always been my first love, and it still is, because I use my fashion training when I'm designing theater. Because at the end of the day, the process is the same. It's just the techniques are different. So, but I'll get to that. So I went to high school, art and design, did really well. And after that, I went to Pratt Institute, another great school here in New York City, a private art school. And my concentration was fashion design. And that's what I wanted to do. I was going to be the next big fashion designer out of New York. You couldn't tell me anything. I was the best. So that's where I started. I was lucky enough again to find another teacher who was teaching a costume design history course that we needed to take as an elective to graduate. And during that time, she made an announcement to the class if anyone wanted or needed a part-time summer job. She knew a costume shop where they make costumes that was looking for a shopper and some help. At the time, I was like, nah, it's not my thing. I'm not a costume designer. I don't know anything. At that point, I hadn't seen a Broadway show. There was nothing about live theater.
So there was no theater in your life growing up?
Not at all. I come from a working class, lower income neighborhood in New York. And all we knew was you worked, you lived, and you survived. The fact that I turned out to be an artist was already out of the norm. So theater was even further from my mind. At the beginning, I didn't want to take the job because I wasn't interested in it. So I passed it, I let it go, and my best friend took the job. 6 months later, he got a better job, and he told me, Emilio, you have to take this job. These ladies will change your life. I needed a job, so I was like, okay, let me try it. And I was 21 years old when I walked into the doors of Grace Costumes, Inc., which is no longer in operation.
No
but
longer
at the
around,
time, they were no, unfortunately, the industry changed and they couldn't change fast enough with it. Because their specialty was opera and ballet.
Got it.
So
your intern job was to be a shopper, right?
My first job was to be a shopper.
Right. Now, what exactly, what does a shopper do in the costume design world?
A shopper is what the title says. You go out and shop. So basically first thing in the morning, I would get a ring with manila cards and either would have a piece of fabric stapled to it, and it would say, we need 10 yards of this. The next card would be a note that says, we need 4 boxes of safety pins. The next box would be, we need 8 spools of black thread, on and on and on. So every production had different needs. So the ring would be about that thick, and I would have to try to get through it through my day. And so that's how I started. And even today, I value that job because I was able to learn about fabrics. I was able to know who sold what. I built relationships with fabric stores that I still have today. It really helped me.
So it really does start, even though you didn't know that you were going to be a costume designer, you were already planting the seeds of what it takes to have a successful career.
Even then, but even when I was doing that, I was still fighting it. I was still calling myself, I was still calling myself
I'm no costume designer.
I'm not a costume designer. I'm not a costume designer. But you're right, that really, really planted the seed. And it wasn't until I met my first mentor, the great costume designer, Jeffrey Holder, who Tony winner for The Wiz. He won for Timbuktu, The Wiz, House of Flowers, but he really made his mark at The Wiz. He won the Tony Award for direction and costume design.
Right.
And he took me
so
under
all of
his...
you young students out there, this is a great opportunity. Jeffrey Holder, you have no idea who it is, but he's one of those legends in the industry that you really should know.
Look him up. As
Emilio said, he inspired so many other people. So the people who are working today have probably learned from him.
Totally. He left an impression on a lot of... He created careers. Just as a little side note, Felicia Rashad, who we all love as Mrs. Huxtable, was a munchkin in the first original production of The Wiz. So it goes way back. But he took me under his wing, and then one day he might have noticed that I was struggling between fashion design and theater design. And he just took me and almost shook me and said, Emilio, you are a costume designer. I was like, okay. And when he gave me that, it's almost like he gave me the permission to do what was really in me and not question it so much. And after he said that to me, then I just didn't stop. And then my career really started from there.
That's so cool. So we have a lot of great questions coming in, and make
Sure.
sure you keep putting them through the chat. So let's see here. Zoe, I believe, has an interesting question. She's asking, if you happen to live in Alaska, how do you go about doing something like that? And I don't think it needs to be specific to Alaska, because it is really your journey as well. How does a kid from the South Bronx, or I don't know, the middle of rural Mississippi, if they have this love, how do they get a little bit more knowledge academically to pursue and just real world experience?
What I always say, the first thing, identify what it is that you love. If it's fashion, then you identify fashion. If it's theater, then you identify that. Then find a designer or a theater in your community that you can write to and just introduce yourself and offer yourself as an intern, or
even like a community theater, right?
Community theater or a library. There's a lot of local theater. Is not only Broadway. I like to tell people, theater is everywhere. Theater is in your community. Before you get to Broadway, you have, I've done theater in every state practically in the union. So I didn't start, you never start on Broadway, you get to Broadway. So if you're in a small community, search out the community theater, write a letter, find who's running the theater and just introduce yourself, ask to come in and just see how it works. And that's how it is. That's
great.
I have a lot of interns. A lot of my interns ends up working for me, but I like them to start as interns because you have to really love what you're doing.
Right.
Because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of hours that no one sees the work that you're doing. So if you have to love it, and to know you love it, you have to be in it in real time. I've been fortunate. I have this platform to be able to speak to a lot of different people, but I started as a shopper, like I said, shopping for fabrics. I would stay late in the costume shop sweeping just so I can watch the drapers. The drapers are the people who actually make the costumes, so I can sit and watch them work after I swept. So I would sweep for an hour, and then I was able to sit and watch them for an hour.
Right.
And that's how I became more knowledgeable. So I think you have to identify what it is you love, then find a place that you can write to, email, or call, and try to get in touch with someone that then you can maybe mentor under and just express that your interest. There's so many people out there that are willing to help, especially in this community of ours.
Yeah, this community is all about giving back. So Emilio, a lot of questions are coming in, a lot about the process of what a costume designer does. So a few of those questions are kind of like, how do you get inspired to design a particular costume for a show? Do you have, what is the first thing you do when you're hired to design costumes for a play or a musical?
Yay, I got a job.
Well, it's always good to celebrate, but after you celebrate and you realize you have to do some work, if you could just break it down to maybe just a few different steps, what do you actually do when you're like, here's the script, go?
Well, that's the first thing. The script is the key. Everything starts with the script. I don't go into a job thinking I know what I'm going to design and what it's going to look like, because I don't know what the playwright has created. So you have to read the script and support what it is. Because a lot of times within a script, the playwright will write, the lead actress is in a red dress. So what am I going to design? A red dress. But it doesn't tell you what color red, what style. So you have a lot of leeway. But for me, it always starts with the script. And then depending if it's a period piece, meaning historical goes back, then I start my research. one of the reasons that I enjoy what I do so much is that part of my brain loves history, and the other half loves fashion. Right. And costume design is the perfect marriage of both together. Right. So depending on the play, let's say I'm working on a play, this is just out of my brain. When I did the Gloria Estefan On Your Feet, that was Gloria Estefan's life story. And we started that, it was Miami, 1985. So what I do is I go through Google, the library, anywhere you can find photographs of what did Miami look like in 1985. And then you start looking at color and shapes, and that's how I start. I just want to see, I want to immerse myself in the world that we're creating, and then I get more specific on the actual character and what they need. But it starts research.
So how close-knit is the relationship with, say, a set designer? I mean, clearly the relationship with the playwright, but you might not be working with the playwright, the director, like, how does that all work, you know, within the little world of putting on a play?
Well, if you had a triangle, imagine it as a triangle. The playwright is at the top of the triangle because they created and they wrote what you're working on. Your director is under that because they're directing you and putting all the departments together, and then you have your departments. Set design always starts first because they take the longest to build, and then it's costumes. So a lot of times by the time they get to me, the set has been designed, and they've already picked the color of the walls and the floor or the sofa or the curtains. So my job is to make sure that when I design something, I don't design a dress that's the same color as the sofa.
Oh, that's a really great point. That's a great point. Now, but that's another, that's a really great example of how collaborative it has to be.
Totally. Well, one of the first things my associate and I, we get together with the set designer and we ask for what are the soft goods. Soft goods is considered anything that's a fabric, like curtains, the sofa, the pillows, tablecloth, anything that the character would either sit or stand against. And once we have that, then I can make my selections to make sure that my character stands out. And sometimes a good collaborative set designer will change some things once they see the design. You know, because I've had times when a set designer would change the color of the walls just because the dress was so perfect and they wanted to change the color of the wall. But it's very collaborative, but that's the hierarchy. Playwright, director, set design. And that's the world we design in. That's the world.
And more about the process of actually being a costume designer. So you, as the costume designer, are the top point of your triangle. Who is on your team? Who's on your costume design team? And so meaning, what other jobs are there if someone's interested in costume design and they're not ready yet to be the top dog? What else can they do in that world?
Well, I think if you want to design and you're not ready to be the designer or take the lead, you can always start as an assistant, or you can start as an apprentice. Because my department, it says costume design, but I'm in charge also of the hair and the makeup and the shoes. There's jewelry, there's accessories. Each category has like someone that looks over, like the shoe person, the person that handles the shoes. That's a job within itself to handle shoes. Or you're working on, you're doing underwear. That's a whole job. Hair and makeup, that's a whole nother team that I supervise. So there's a lot of different avenues within the costume design world that you can take.
And the stitchers and those people who are actually building the costumes, they typically work in a costume shop, right?
No, sometimes we work in the back of a truck, or we work in a tent. As long as you have a table and a sewing machine, you can do your job. But it depends. Because like I said, I've done stuff on location, like film work, and we're in the middle of nowhere in the back of a truck sewing costumes. Or I've worked at the very best theaters in New York, and we have an entire costume shop at our disposal that can not only sew the costumes, but they can print fabric, they can do beading, they can do fabric dyeing. There's a lot of different arts and craft things that you can do within a costume shop.
Got it. So, since you really didn't know that you wanted to be a costume designer until a little bit later, you know, that's fine. You've done it, so that's the most important thing. What did you feel that you were missing anything academically? You know, when you were in your 20s and you were actually working, you know, because it is very expensive to go to grad school, so it's not an option for everyone. So if you can't do that, if you can't get into a program, an academic costume design program, and I think you had touched on this a little bit, what can you do to get the experience that you need?
I think in life there's two schools. There's a school academic, and then there's the school of hard knocks. I went through the school of hard knocks. You learn on the job. You get hired on a production. You start at the bottom, and you work your way up. The important thing is that you absorb, you learn, and you watch.
Right.
Learn and watch. Who does what are the responsibilities, and then one job begets another job. Also, in our industry, directors and designers like to work in teams.
Right.
So if you work, like, let's say I'll use myself as an example. If I hire you to be a sharper on one job, and you did an amazing, incredible job, 99% of the time, I'm going to hire you for the next job.
Right.
And then I may hire you to be a design assistant. So you're moving up slowly but surely. But I think as far as was I missing something, not going to a graduate program, at the beginning of my career, maybe a little. But like I said, I was a fast learner and I worked hard. And I knew within myself that if my talent could get me in the room, I could outwork anyone next to me with a master degree from another school, because I had the desire and I had the to really bust it out and just want to do it. You have to want to do it. You have to love it.
Absolutely.
You have to love it.
Here's some cool questions, and I think I might be able to answer this, but correct me if I'm wrong. James asks, do costume designers also create hand props, or is that considered part of set design? And it's set design, correct?
Well, it depends.
Props?
Technically, it's a set design for props. But as a costume designer, I want to have the power to pick the props that my actor wears with my costume. Because they get to pick purses and backpacks. That's a set piece.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
No, yep. But I definitely always make sure that I coordinate with the prop person and say, this is what I'm looking for. Do you have it in your stock? If you don't have it, then I want to make sure that I get the right one. Because for me, that's still part of the character.
Absolutely. I learn something new every day. I represent you people. I did not know that. I didn't. Here's another interesting question from Leslie. One thing that the designers across the board try to do as best they can is diversify. You know, there's a limited number of New York shows. Not everybody wants to travel all over the place. It's, you know, like any other career, you need to expand yourself. So a lot of them try to do TV and film work. So Leslie's asking, what degree of overlap is there between making costumes for theater and making them for film and TV? What are the differences and the similarities?
That's a great question. Thank you, Leslie. The big I think that you approach the design the same as a designer for me. I always approach it the same. But the big difference is you have to think a theatrical experience, you're on stage, the audience might be 30 to 50 feet away. Imagine it that way. So you have to make choices that an audience can see from 50 feet away. While on TV, the camera can see the thread stitch on my t-shirts. So your choices are different. The camera gets really, really close. Yeah. So you have to be more detail oriented as far as your design element. Like I designed at Radio City, and one of the things that I learned from Radio City, which is the largest stage in the world, there's 5,000 seats, was you have to design so the very, very top seat at the end of the balcony gets the same experience that the first row down in the orchestra.
Right.
So visually, you have to think bigger. TV, it's more precise, it's closer to the camera,
right,
and it's all about the details. So that's one aspect in the design. But then there's another one as far as the process is the same, but the things are called differently. Like what I call a stage manager on stage is like a line producer on TV.
Right.
So you have to learn the terminology of it. But I'm a firm believer in start where you want to finish.
Oh, absolutely. And also, I think another component to that too is how you construct the costumes, right? Because for theater, they got to live for at least a year. I mean, and then maybe you're on tour. And for TV and film, they wear it once and you're done.
Totally. In theater, you have to, the biggest challenge is 8 shows a week. Imagine wearing something 8 times a week and you're sweating in it and it has to get cleaned every day. If it touches your body, it has to be washed. That's by like industry rules. And then if it doesn't touch your body, you have to dry clean it once a week. So that's a lot of wear and tear on clothing.
Just so y'all know, what Emilio is referencing is every union has very specific guidelines, and Actors Equity just has very specific guidelines about how he just said you have to wash it if it touches your body, because they don't wear their own underwear, which is something that I didn't always know, especially if it's a period piece. They have to wear period underwear.
We control everything. I think when you do a period show, you do everything. Also, it helps the actor. Actors love it. Actors love it when the designs are period perfect, because it helps them transport into that time span. So that's a big thing. You have
so that leads me to a question. How closely do you work with actors, and what special skills do you need when you're working, with actors who are, especially if it's in a play where they're only wearing one outfit, one costume? They might get nervous if they don't like it, or if they're, don't like the way it looks on them. How does that relationship evolve?
I think if you would ask actors that I've worked with, they will tell you that I am an actor-friendly design collaborators, because at the end of the day, a happy actor gives a great performance. Right. And that's what you want. It's a collaborative effort. I'm not the type of designer that I'm gonna like force you to wear something that you do not like or doesn't flatter you just because I want you to wear it. We have to, but also there comes a time when an actor has to also realize, if this is the period, if it's 1920s, let's say, and a woman's dress didn't really have a waistline, but you want to show your waistline, there's nothing I can do.
Sorry, do another show.
It's not the period, but this is how I work it. But then I'll let you choose the jewelry. I'll let you choose the accessories. I'll let you choose the color of the shoe. It's a give and take.
That's good. So they feel like they have some input.
You have to give people ownership of the costume so they can really live in it. And it's not a costume, it becomes part of the character. My thing as a designer is I don't want people to go and say, oh, what beautiful costumes, which that's part of it. But I want them to say, what a beautiful show.
Right.
That means that they enjoy the entire experience.
Exactly. Emilio, here's a great question from Rochelle. How do you work quick changes into costume design? She says that she recently had a 30-second quick change in a show, so she's curious.
Oh, well, that you take care of that prior to getting to the technical rehearsals, which is tech. That's when we try everything. You have to design it that way. And that comes from your relationship with your director and how the show is going to move. If you know that that character needs to be, if the character says the last line in one scene, and then they're the first character in the next scene, and there's a costume change in there, you have to design it like that. You can't get to when you're rehearsing and then go, oh my God, this dress has to come off in 30 seconds. You have to build that into your design from the very, very beginning.
Have you ever had to do that specifically? Was there anything in one of your shows that you can tell them what the real, what the process was?
What
with
like,
that, or give them an example?
Let's say, okay, I don't know why I keep referencing On Your Feet, only because I love that show. And
it was a great show. I loved it.
It's a great show. And our lead actor, Anna Villafañe, amazing actress. Mm-hmm. She had one section which she had to change 3 different looks for 3 different scenes, one right after another. And a lot of times what we did is you layer. She had on 2 pairs of pants, 2 different shirts, and a sweater. Wow. So for the first scene, she had the sweater buttoned up and a pair of jeans, right? You tore the sweater off. The jeans had all these like snaps on the side, and you tore the jeans off. She went fly away. She went out and did that scene. Then she came back. We took off the second top, and then the bottom short pants became shorts, and then she did that scene. So it's choreographed. It's a choreograph. Right. Sometimes what you don't see backstage is more of a show than what you do see, because there's a million people changing hair, taking shirts off, adding shoes, changing jewelry. But it's like I said, it's a collaborative dance, and it's fun. After a while, it's fun. You know, we want to see how fast we can do it, and it becomes a challenge.
You hear stories. Oh, I did that in 10 seconds. I got it done.
Exactly.
People would talk about the cats' costumes and how do they get in their makeup and all that stuff. So this is a great question, and it's a little completely random, but Leslie's asking, and I'm going to ask you because it's funny. Have you ever designed a spacesuit costume?
Oh my God, I've never done anything for the no. Not yet.
And we'll work on it and see what you
Michael,
come up with. That would be fun. Yeah, they don't usually have a lot of space musicals.
Yeah, it's a lot of theater. It's a lot of theater in space. That's a good.
Exactly.
That's a good question,
hold on one second. So I want to make sure we get to this. Camp Broadway has a motto. Basically, develop your character. That's their motto. How do you define character in your world?
In my world, it's different. Character, like I said, comes from the playwright and the words. The words. And my job, I think, to help an actor is to give them as much information of the reality of the period that they're in, so then they are informed to be able to create the character. And then I, as the costume designer, make sure that I know everything about that period costume-wise. So I can say, this is what they wore, this is why they wore it, and that helps a character form. So for me, building a character, it starts with the director, the playwright, and my actor. And my job is to make sure that everyone is informed of what it is that it should be. And then we create it what it needs to be for the piece.
Got it. Here's a great question from Annika. I think that's her, Annika. How do you take into account a character's emotional aspects when designing a costume?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one, right?
You know what? Color. Really? You have happy colors, you have sad colors. If the character is depressed and has a death in the family, then I'm not going to put them in a red, white, and blue sparkle sequin gown. Right. So you use color. It's a huge indicator of emotion. I think it's one of the greatest indicator of emotion because we register color before anything else.
Visually.
In the brain. Literally.
Oh, I gotcha.
So if the scene is a somber scene, so I'm using earth tones, dark, browns, grays. Right. If it's a happy celebratory scene, reds, blues, oranges. And then you create a feeling. And once you create that feeling, then you can get more specific for the character.
Interesting. So there are I think the teachers will appreciate what I'm going to say, because it's from everything that you've said, there's so much more that goes into costume design than just sketching. But you need to know your history. You need to know science, because I guess you need to know how fabrics work.
Yes.
If you got to get them wet or something. You also need to know a little bit about math if you're cutting and actually building the costume. So I guess you can never say, what do I need that subject for?
You need everything. I always say, I really didn't learn how to use the ruler until I got into making costumes. Because I didn't know what 3/8 of an inch versus 3/4 of an inch. To me, when I was in high school, I'm like, I don't need that. I'm an artist. I don't need math. Now, math is all I do, whether it's doing your budget, because you have to have a budget.
Oh, we didn't even touch upon that. Yeah. Talk about that a little bit, because one of the fascinating things and one of the really important things that I think, coming from a business perspective, separates, it might be a little too black and white, but a successful designer from one who is not. You run your own business.
We run, it is.
And the producer who is paying for the show wants to know that you come in under budget. So just touch upon that for a little bit.
I think it's important for that's one of the first things you do once you figure out. I'll just give you an overview of how we put a show together, and that would help you with the budget. So once I've read the script, I've had several meetings with my director. We know what the concept is. Then I go and then I start designing and sketching. And once designs are approved, then you know if your leading lady has 3 costumes, the leading man has 2, and then your secondary characters. Then you figure out where you spend your money. So that's where your budget comes in. Right. And also, like
you're given the budget. You do not create the budget. No. Just so everybody, the producer gives you, here's how much you got.
It's a little bit of both.
Because you can argue it, but
but they definitely
and you can fight for more money.
Totally, but they definitely have a number that they want to stay within. How you allocate it, that's my job.
So someone asks a question and there's no answer, no definitive answer, but for a major Broadway musical,
yes,
what's a standard costume budget?
It depends. It depends how many people's in the cast. It depends whether it's modern.
Well, give a range. Just give a range, because then I want to know, like, what would also be like for a regional production of a cast of 5 in a play.
Okay. So I've done shows where my budget is $85,000 for 22 people. with 3 costumes each. So
Wow.
that's 666, that's 66 costumes for $85,000 is one. And then I've done like Motown the musical. I had 40 people in the cast, over 350 costumes, over 100 wigs, 200 pairs of shoes. That went into the 6-figure million plus. So it all depends on the world you're creating. And then I've done shows at a smaller theaters where you have $10,000 and 10 people and you're doing a huge musical. But it all depends. That's when you have a great director and a great team, and you create a design that can support it. I'm not going to design like Motown the musical on $10,000. You know what I mean? So you have to be smart. It's about being smart. It's about don't sacrifice design just to have pieces on stage for me. So, but I've done low budget. I don't like calling things low budget because theater is always a challenge, whether you have $1 million or not. Some have smaller budget.
With a small budget, small,
and then you have a big.
Yeah.
Right. But then you pick and choose. You pick and choose.
Right. So here's a twofold question from 2 different people. Have you ever had a director flat out reject something you've designed and say, no, not in my show?
All the time.
Do you have an example of one? What show?
Well, I don't want to.
Oh, that's true. Let's not say.
I still want to work.
I don't know if you want to say this as well, but do you have a costume that maybe isn't your favorite, but that you're most proud of because it was either you didn't know what you were going to do and then all of a sudden it came to you, or you didn't really have a great budget and all of a sudden you made it happen with some theatrical magic?
I remember, but to get the first part, yes. I've had directors say no to designs that I presented to them, but I try to get all that out of the way before we start making things. I never ever want to surprise a director with a costume on stage that he or she has not seen, either a sketch or a sample of the fabric, because a lot of times we don't have the time to change stuff. A great example, the Rockettes. I designed for the Rockettes, and there's 80 Rockettes. So one of the first lessons I learned, and they have a huge development time, was you can change one, you can't change 80. Meaning that get the first one perfect. Talk to the director, talk to whoever you need to talk to make sure that when you go into production and you're making 80 beaded dresses, you don't get on stage and then they say, oh, can you change the color?
Exactly. It's really so much about, about theater in general is all about communication. We are, speaking of communication, we're getting to wrap up our communication.
Oh,
so
no.
I know we could talk all day. So Emilio, is there anything that you want to share, parting words of wisdom with those who are watching, who are interested in exploring this career, or if they know exactly what they want to do?
I would always say, don't give up your dreams. You're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of people who are going to not support you, and it's not because you don't have the talent. You might have the talent and they're just afraid that you have the talent, and it makes them feel some kind of way personally. Persevere. No is not a no. No is just a soft yes. That's what I say.
Excellent.
Don't take no for an answer. Just push forward.
Right. And always believe in yourself. That's really very important. And be realistic, about where you want to go and what you have to do. Clearly, Emilio is, expressed it's a lot of hard work, but the payoff is wonderful. So I want to thank you.
Oh,
thank you, Streamable. Thank you, students. teachers,
Thank
everybody
you.
who came in. Camp Broadway at this stage will be doing this for several more weeks, I believe. Different times. Go to campbroadway.com/@this-stage to get more information. Until then, everybody be safe during this time, and talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.